What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Apartment 113 podcast, where we talk with cool folks in the cannabis and psychedelics industry to learn about their projects and celebrate their successes. My name is Rob Sanchez, and we've got a winner of an episode today. Certified Ganjier Matt Jerome joins us here on episode 4. He's the founder of Meristem Cannabis Consulting, and throughout this episode, we talk about his perspectives on the industry and experiences with the plant. Matt and I are also regular contributors to the Fat Nugs magazine, which can be found and ordered at fatnugsmag.com. And Meristem offers personalized cannabis operations consulting in Canada. Find out more at meristemcannabis.com. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, dude. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, of course. It's a conversation that's been long in the making, right? As we've been working on some of these projects remotely.
I feel like I know you, very well, but yeah, it's the first time we've been able to speak, and it's great, man. It's really good to connect and get everything down to it.
Right. Yeah, it's wild how disparate you can be in the cannabis industry and still be working on similar projects. Yeah. Where are you located at in Canada again?
Toronto. I'm west side Toronto, yep. Right in the heart of Canada here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I was going up in there, in that area of Ontario for software implementations for Afria and a few other companies for maybe a year or so down in Leamington, a little tomato capital of the country down there.
Yeah, I've been there once or twice, actually. Not too many people in Ontario can say that, but fun town.
Yeah, it was not the greatest remote destination to work in, during February, January weather.
Tough months, yeah. We got a snowstorm a couple of days ago yesterday as we had to reschedule and called it, man. It was bananas here.
Right. Yeah, the weather is unforgiving at times up north. So on the cannabis front, man, how did you find the certified Ganjier program, and when did you complete your class?
I completed my class in October last year, 2021, and had my mind blown, man. I don't have enough good things to say. It was an experience of a lifetime. I had high expectations, and my expectations were exceeded, which is something very remarkable. Like, I had these guys were and still are, my heroes. I've had family that grew up in LA. I've from Hollywood to Northern California, a little bit south of San Francisco to Laguna Beach. They've been kind of spread out. So any chance I could, I got up there, shamelessly freeloaded when I was younger, and hung out with my cousins and stuff. And so I knew of a lot of these guys like Frenchie and Kevin and Mel and just guys we'd grown up with, reading and learning from, and to be able to learn from them directly and have access to the amazing program that these guys had put together. It just looked too good to be true. And when everything was said and done, I remember being so excited when I received my application, thumbs up and like, yeah, you're good to go. We're excited to have you. And I think back on those times very fondly. That was a really, really special trip for me to get back up there.
Right. It's such a comprehensive class, kind of, for listeners that aren't aware of the Certified Ganjier program. Essentially, it's a program to create cannabis sommeliers, cannabis professionals that are educated in the history and science of cannabis, ones that can take you through methods of consumption and help you find some peace or some joy in cannabis, however that may be. Exactly. Right? The general consensus can be just, try it sometime, take a hit off this bowl, or try this pre-roll going around the circle. But there are gentler ways to get into the water in the cannabis industry. And for folks who've been in the scene for a while, like yourself and, like some of these cats from the early California days, it's much different, right? With a higher tolerance, we can chop it up and smoke a few blunts and have this same conversation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where that may all, in other circles, just completely halt people's ability to communicate.
Exactly. I feel so bad when you have someone who you forget, is kind of somewhat mortal in the sense, and you just see them in the circle and, some part of the atmosphere just not
shutting
comfortable
down
at all. Like, I just, oh no, I forgot. But as you say, there are gentler ways, and it's an important step in understanding cannabis a little bit more, to be able to impart that knowledge to people who really need it these days. Like, there's so many people out there who need this knowledge and discernible information given to them in a digestible way. I know people are getting thrown a lot of information from one side to the other, a lot of which isn't needed or is, kind of beaten to a pulp, and the THC and the terpene percentage battle with that, like, I understand, but there's a lot more to cannabis. There really is just so many layers that need to be unfolded for people who are really interested in using this as a therapeutic source of relief and calming and whatever it be in your life. It has the ability to do that, and it's exciting to have guys and the amazing women. Like, it's traditionally been in circles that I've been kind of a boys club, and seeing, learning from some of the amazing women out there, seeing Wendy's farm and what her amazing family heritage and stuff can do.
Definitely, man. These gals can grow like the best of them.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're
amazing.
saying, man. Some of the legacy scene or some of the like kind of underground scene was definitely some dudes kind of running things, wheeling and dealing. And I mean, there are of course women in that scene as well, and we're thankful for their contributions. We're just maybe not as aware, but it is awesome to see that expanding now and being just much more of a all-inclusive crowd, really, from the owner all the way down to the grower. And I think it's been through a lot already, and we probably still have a lot to go on the cannabis industry side.
Yeah, but
Before,
it's big steps. Yeah, for sure.
right. Before Ganjier, man, were you already cultivating or working in the industry, or just a passionate consumer?
No, I got my roots pretty early with. My mom was a hippie from a young age. She was a very free-spirited, like, she worked as a journalist when I was young. Single parent, so it was just me and her. And she didn't introduce it to me as, here, try this, but I was around it, like her cameraman. I spent a lot of time. I had a little bit of a different childhood growing up, as when I was younger. Being a single parent, she had to be out on assignment and couldn't leave me with people, so she took me a lot of places. I didn't spend a lot of time in school, so I spent a lot of time I spent years in Rotterdam and Amsterdam, London, Paris. We were over in Munich and Prague. Like, we kicked around Europe quite a bit. So.
Oh wow! Yeah, definitely a unique upbringing.
100%, and I loved every minute of it. It was amazing to soak in each one of those cultures. I have a heavy European twist on the way that I do things, which is another reason I think I was so attracted to the Ganjier. Is down there, I remember my first French croissant. I will never ever forget, the fish and chips that you get in London. I guess that's a bad way of putting it. I'll never forget the first scotch I had in Scotland. That it was something that is done and can be done simply, but it wasn't done simply. It was done so intricately that you couldn't describe the difference, and that's something that always attracted me in everything that I had, and was a huge reason that I got into the Ganjier program. But
just in appreciating the senses, or finding those differences, right, between a typical croissant or something, just from a grocery store versus like what you'd actually get from the baker or from the street corner in France. So it's
There's
unreal,
no,
right?
it is. There's no, and that's why, as a kid, I was like, what is the difference? And learning later that it's the farmer. It's where that milk is sourced. It's how much effort is put into raising that cattle for the beef. How happy that cow is. Like
Passion across the board.
passion across the board, man. That's where the definer was, and it was something that I couldn't forget. You can't forget how good that was, and it was always something that I brought to my cannabis growing. So I actually started when I'm a proud black market grower have been for a long time, not anymore, but as far back as it was, I was about 18, 17 when I really started.
Okay, awesome, man. Yeah, so just getting started, closet grow style.
I got my intro a little bit deeper because I was up north smoking a joint with one of my buddies who was in the area, and I had a couple closet grows that I'd done, and it was about my third grow, and brought it up to these old graybeards that I called them up north, who were a bunch of ex-vets who smoked pot. We didn't think anything of them, but they had pooled together with their ACNPR, which is the medicinal license that we had here, and created quite a serious grow up.
Okay.
And smoked my stuff immediately, and we're like, we need to incorporate this guy into like whatever you're bringing. So I brought a lot of the genetics from Cali. Having family over there, I immediately
Bring some good cuttings.
Started talking to some breeders and getting some seeds over, and try to get them a stable. So I had an HVAC background as well. I started doing the trades when I was young. So
okay, yeah, and that is not
merged.
Yeah, I was gonna say that skill set is not separate from cannabis at all, man.
No,
it's uniquely
intertwined
needed
nice.
for cannabis. Yeah.
Didn't realize it at the time, but it was essential to something that came through. So we started scaling up, and that was where I started running into people. For me, it was medicinal. Like at this point, I had my own medicinal journey, sports, injuries, anxiety problems, things like that I
It's like
used
personal
cannabis
treatments.
for.
Yeah.
And I had some rough days, but it was only when I started growing up north and we started integrating into the community a little more that I started meeting some very sick people who needed this cannabis, and not only needed this cannabis, but needed the cannabis that I grew because it was better than someone else's. Again, less tooting my horn and more, some people just didn't, they're throwing seeds in the back. And like I said, with my Epicurean kind of style of doing anything, that I jumped in full-fledged and started reading books like, Jorge and Mel and Ed and all the beauties that we've learned from over the years, that I hit the ground running and I didn't realize it. So I was providing people with some relief, and it became kind of that really sparked my flame.
Kind of a feedback loop.
Loved it, man. Like I really got into learning more. Some of the most interesting people, I don't know if it was, I do now, and I understand completely, but it was a lot of the veteran community, a lot of people who'd been to war, a lot of people who'd seen some stuff, a lot of people who were fighting PTSD. We had paramedics, we had old athletes, we had just elderly people who were, life been rough, had a couple broken bones and this and that, and they just found some of the craziest, relief from cannabis in whatever way we were trying it. Mostly it was weed, hash, pop brownies. That's what we offered, and that's, people just
The classics.
The classics, man. And it was something that got, in deep with me, because that's something that I've really tried to bring to everything I do, is the patient-focused care.
Yeah, so you think there was a noticeable difference from, cultivating for yourself or for your buddies for the black market versus, starting to see where that cultivation effort's actually ending, or kind of where the consumer appreciation is for some of those medical patients, kind of change your outlook on the whole process a little bit?
Definitely, and especially when the correlation between quality, like your best grows, and efficacy, and how effective that was for the people, was so blatant to me. Like, it's the simplest thing as you smoke bad weed, you have to smoke more of it. Therefore, there's a lot in the way. And
combusting more, paying for more, wasting more packaging.
It's just, and you transfer that to anything that's unacceptable. You wouldn't do that with food. You wouldn't do, if we had to eat 30 pounds of food to get a little bit of nutrition in it. Which,
dude, imagine if some companies
I guess we're going that way. The way that we're growing stuff, but I digress.
Yeah, some food probably isn't as nutritionally sound as it should be. I was just imagining like a strawberry company that could create mids the way that some of these MSOs can, and they're just nasty strawberries. Like they don't look good, but they still sell them. Like, hey, dude, our strawberries are fine. Just don't worry.
Like, how's the only way we sell that is that's the only way. That's the only thing that's available, and it's like, you want strawberries, you eat shit strawberries, so that's
right.
It. Like,
right. With strict laws on growing your own because quality strawberries are unheard of.
Exactly. And
the crop's so far behind, man. We're catching up these 30, 40 years.
And it's amazing the lessons that still need to be learned. I jump back to, again, France, and we know deeply about terroir and how influential that is on the cannabis and plants or whatever kind of product you're making in that terroir has a huge affect.
Right, really bringing in the environment that product was made in as well. So it's not just the passion that we're growing with at the farms. It's really the geographical location of this farm will make different quality than somewhere else, and that's getting into that terroir, that appreciation there. I think that's something that cannabis definitely has working in its favor, and it's very much in the early days. But I could tell you, man, if I were here in Vegas, but I could order some Humboldt outdoor at the same time while ordering some like Nepalese Kush or something crazy from overseas, and then getting some wicked Toronto cut from some underground basement, all coming to me. Like that's e-commerce right there. That's globalization done right. Yeah.
And that's what we deserve, fighting as hard as we have. I know so many soldiers in this fight who, every time I'm on here, I gotta you can't shut them up by name, but there's so many people I know who fall into this ridiculous battle and war that we've fought against this plant and the shepherds who have kept her just alive. Despite its attempted eradication, there's so many people out there who have fought this fight and have built the foundations that we're standing on, and this isn't what they were fighting for. To have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 or even if it's a double-digit number of CEOs and people reaping benefits, this is what no one wants. This is not what we deserve. We need quality. We need people to understand and get out of the way of a lot of people who are trying to, because there are people out there. I meet them all the time who are really trying to push the correct, the right agenda, and
kind of change that general look at quality with cannabis. In newer markets, at least, it tends to be THC. It's without a doubt just looking at what's the highest THC percentage, which then puts more pressure on the labs. So now as a cultivator, I want a buddy lab that's going to hook me up with a nice reading. As illicit as that sounds, there's some of that shit going on in the States. It's wild. You hit the nail on the head, man, and it's what that concept right there is what actually made me jump out of the industry and take a huge relook at what I wanted to be and what I wanted to be a part of. And I had founded Meristem Cannabis in about 2016, 2017, and was doing stuff on the side, ramping up for legalization, wanted to get everything ready and see what you could do. And up here in Canada, it was a payday for a few and a nightmare for the rest of us, and was immediately. It was a very, very cutthroat time, and still is. It's very, very chaotic in the sense, but
there was a lot. I remember I worked for director of patient care for a pretty, not a huge operation, but one in Toronto that I wish not to name because of they just don't deserve it. As
Right.
that's
Experience
what
is valuable, but the rest of the experience was maybe not so much, huh?
exactly you pull the good from it and you just leave the rest, which was a lot. But it
Yeah,
taught me
everyone's
how
had those.
it's like a rite of passage in this, and I've been, again, like I said, in the black and the gray. I'm no stranger to being, cloak and dagger and screwed over and all that lovely stuff, but not on the
Oh
scale
yeah.
and not with the blatancy. But I ran into testing and, sent my test out and got a call back from the lab. And I said, how much is it? What's the numbers? What do we get in at? And he said, well, we've run the test, but like, we haven't given you the final bill. So like, what are you guys looking for?
Oh
I was
man.
like, no, like,
Dude.
I'm looking for. I knew what he was saying immediately. I felt like throwing
Yeah.
up because I was like, no, man, like you're a huge lab and you don't even know who I am. It was just so. I immediately turned. That was kind of the day that started
The
me.
straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. Like I turned around and really started losing heart into what I was doing and what I was being a part of, and switched back to being an advocate and a patient.
Right. There's definitely room
Patient
for
rights
that, man.
advocacy and trying to stand up and get some sensible quality into the market with some craft and like anybody
Yeah.
who really wants to have that next level to pull it to the next level and do what we deserve and bring some quality out to the market.
Right. Kind of without all those unnecessary CEOs or corporations profiting along the way. I know it's a necessary evil to just be like large enough, to make enough product for everyone that's going to consume. But it definitely went off the rails, man. There's some issues where I think that for the dudes from the underground and folks that were in the black and gray areas, I mean, there was no wiggle room with like screwing somebody over or not really staying true to your word, man. Like people would try that and then get X'd out of the circle or, cut out of the chain, just dropped basically, man. And
That's so simple.
if it were still like that nowadays, there are many of these MSO companies, and no offense to MSOs, I'm sure there are some excellent ones, but there are some just churning out garbage that you'd be
Yep.
like, hey man, no one buy from this dude again. Seriously, it's bunk.
Yeah.
And it would just be like gone, man. Have to go to the next town over,
As I said, I've been not shy of being messed over or stabbed in the back, but that's the last time. It's a
Yeah.
very one-off thing, and you had your crew. You had the people who had your back, and that was at the heart of it, is community, which is what cannabis is all about. It was
Totally.
about cannabis and what we grew. If you wanted it, you paid for it. If you need it, it's free. And that's what we
Right.
rolled on. And there were so many people that helped get their life back, get their power back from just smoking a little weed, having this ability to, have
Level
something
set.
in there, level set, just reset, have the homeostatic reset, and be
Yeah.
able to get a little bit of normalcy in their life. And it was life changing. It's something that, as you said, MSOs are a necessary evil. We need people who I don't equate cannabis to beer in anything, but there are similarities that you have to. We need the Coors Lights. We need
Yeah.
the stuff
Right.
out there that if you want to smoke, you want to smoke. But you can't deprive us of the craft. You can't deprive the people of what we're going to do anyways. Like, I don't understand how the government or whoever is trying to regulate this hasn't figured out that this is a necessary part of, if you're a necessary evil, you need to understand that there needs to be a part of you that you just need to leave alone. And it's been so blatant up here, and the stock nightmares that have been going down in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Just MSOs crumbling because nobody wants to buy mids and garbage and pay a premium for it, because this isn't something that people we're introduced to overnight. We've been smoking weed up here it's cold, man. We don't have much else to do, bro. Like behind me, it's freezing. Like
Just
you need
watching
to just
hockey
smoke and
and
chill
smoke it
and
up.
have a beer and just relax for a couple months. What's necessary. And you
Yeah,
don't want crappy weed doing it. We don't accept.
right. That's been hard for the industry, man, for sure.
It's tough, man.
The
Yeah.
apartment 113 name actually comes from a apartment that I lived in for a while in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we used to have a lot of after parties there, and some folks were wheeling and dealing, had some interesting roommates, and it was just it was a really good apartment, man. We had some good times there, and when you were in there, it was like you were family, like you were already brought into the apartment, and so it was chill. Like no one was gonna screw you over. Like you could leave stuff there. You know, sometimes people would clean the house for us. It was wild, dude. It was awesome. So the
That's
apartment 113 is meant to try to bring that same vibe, but to the larger industry, right? Trying to break down the walls, like, you know, raise the transparency and kind of communicate and that kind of thing, and
I love that, man.
pushing that same feeling that the houses used to be, man.
That's where we all have memories, and if walls could talk in some of the places that we all got together and just hang out, have a smoke, chat. Like there's
Yeah,
a lot to be said to just session with friends. It's important. It's good not only for it's good to just check on people. That's the other thing too. I find hanging out and going out and drinking and having a good time. There has to be a place for that. I'm getting farther away from that. I know you are too with dad life. Like
right. Starting to move
that's
towards just wanted to chill a little bit more low key.
just low key. I've always been more have a smoke by the campfire. Let's have a chat. Let's just sit in silence.
Right.
Have a
Sometimes that's what it
community.
takes.
That's what it takes, man. Sometimes, some people are a community problem. Like, let's sort this out together. And no, I'm glad to hear that the 113 is significant to you in that way, because I've got a couple apartments and places in Toronto like that
Kind of
always have
remember
my
that
heart, man.
that
Yeah,
spot.
always
Yeah.
have my like. You just think of the places and you just laugh because of the goofy times you had there.
Yeah, shout out to anyone who lived in apartment, 114, 115, 16, all the surrounding areas. Sorry for the hallway smell.
A huge shout out to anybody in 154 Wingcott had a smoke with me in my basement. Man, the times we
Right.
had. I love it. I love it.
Have you always been in the Toronto area in Canada, or did you move east?
No, I've moved around Toronto a little bit, been downtown scene a little bit, out west, but
Sweet.
mostly, yeah. I haven't passed the midline. I've been a West Side boy.
Nice, nice. Yeah, when it comes to consumption there in Canada, what is your go-to these days, or your typical daily driver?
I've been a guy. I'm big into my hash, like right away, especially when winter comes. I'm busting out my stash, and I get a lot of product and samples sent by some of my boys out in BC. I'm always trying to work with them on their lines, help them understand the flavors and experiences that are going on between these cuts and crosses. So I've got a couple from them going on right now that are just. One of my buddies is working on a sweet berry. Another one's got a tuna cross, which are both have. I think the sweet berry's got some Romulan genetics, and then the tuna's obviously a nice. I think it's a bluefin cross, but that combined
Tasty.
with a little bit of man, like and Canadian too. They got a Canadian flair on it, so I love that. And the hash that I've got going on is some of the old. I think it's some Van Isle hash that I got that is really just bringing me home every time I come back from work, just settling me down. So yeah, that's what I'm puffing on these days.
Strike that familiar chord for you.
That's it, man. You need those lean-ons, those trusty ones.
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to discerning like flavor and quality, that's definitely something else the Ganjier program pushes for certified folks to rate flower and concentrates in the appearance, the aroma, the flavor, and the experience. Is that something that you were already digging into really before Ganjier, or did the program kind of open your eyes to that kind of maybe kind of rating or that kind of judgment even over the products that we create and love?
I felt like I was training for the Ganjier since I started smoking weed, because I was that guy.
Dude,
I was
same.
that guy in the corner who's like, they're like, oh yeah, this is bomb. I'm like, but this Kush is more piney, like a little lemon twist. I felt like a chef in the corner, and some of my buddies were like, dude, shut up, like. And but everyone has, I think you always had that one group in the, like one friend in the group who was like that, and
Like
the Ganjier,
really into it.
like really into it, and the Ganjier is just all the collectives of those guys, those one or two random people in the group who just felt
Totally.
like, yeah.
Dude,
no,
I remember being in a
loved it.
little group like in high school or something, and like they were smoking something, and I was so concerned about what it was because I was reading all these forums like on rollitup.org and about all these cultivars and like landrace strains and things, being like, what is this strain though? Like what is this one? What is that one? And they would like go back and ask and then come and tell me a name, and I'd be like doing Google research and going back to school or like telling people about it, and like who knows what it was, you know? It was probably just some ditchweed.
Well, that's
Like K-Town.
I love the stories too, and I think of how many stories I'm like, yeah, that guy just definitely got me. You know, like the drug dealer, or drug dealer, quote unquote.
Right.
Some teenager with extra money buying some weed. That's what it was, and he would give me some story, and I'd be like, awesome, man, and then go back and be like, no, that story's ridiculous. But yeah, the Landry stuff, like I still look back, like we had bubble gum, we had juicy fruit, we had those early shishka berries and Romulans, and Northern was a huge thing that kicked around. I remember like where'd China Bud go? Like I had a talk with one of my buddies where I'm like, that was what we called just like subpar weed. It wasn't even a thing, and now it's like, I don't know. I think back so fondly on so many of the, like all the heritage that went into it and all the people. Blueberry, when that came across that was one that I remember smoking DJs, like I think it was one of his
Getting to try some of that.
Yeah, it was one of my buddies who grew and made hash. He was a little bit older than me and knew I was into it, and he like came down from Perry Sound and was like, yeah, I'm coming down to smoke a joint just with you for this.
You got to try this.
And it was, I will never forget, it was another one. We were sitting in his room.
Yeah, that blueberry line, I think it was an earlier cross maybe that is actually the descendant or the early ancestor of Tang Tang. And that Tang cultivar crossed with UK cheese creates my favorite cultivar. Is called Ultra Sonia. From Grindhouse Seeds, and I was growing it a little while in Colorado. I've not found it in a long time because the THC percentage I think is actually a little low, so the market's just like kind of choking it out. But I need to find some of those seeds again, man. That Tang line and anything cheesy, I'm all for that, man. That funk.
I was a huge cheese guy. I liked it, and that's why I realized it was stuff that was distinct to me. Like blueberry is a very distinct taste. Cheese is a very. And I still remember when Kush hit the scene, and I looked at one of my buddies and I was like, this isn't weed. Like, what is this? This is banana. Like, this is outrageous.
Dude, with good terpene content, some of these flowers can knock you off your feet, man. It just sits you down. They're so deep. I feel like sometimes you're like swimming down into the scent, you know? Like getting deeper, you're like, okay, there's blueberries. All right, keep swimming. Like, oh, there's vanilla. Like, interesting, you know? And you're like swimming around more. Like, it's kind of dark down here, you know? It's the bottom of the lake, and you're like, oh shit, it's chocolate, or it's like something else hiding.
Whatever cut, you can't find it. It just has to come to you. Like the bottom of the lake effect is great because I've thought the same way. And again, we've had no benchmark. Like we've all been out there kind of swimming in our own. I mean, I had like notebooks upon notebooks of this stuff, and when the Ganjier hit, it was monumental. Like I'd met Kevin and Frenchie at I met Frenchie way back in the Emerald Cup. I say met as in he literally, hey, like, how's it going?
Passing.
Shook my hand. I was just in shock.
That's awesome.
But it was just after he'd given an impassioned speech about terroir and talking about the importance of the farmer. I still remember that as being a huge spark to me to be like, that makes perfect sense, bringing my European twist on everything and the farmers and the cheese. I'm like, cannabis is the same. Oh my God.
Connecting those dots
And just realizing we have a duty here to the same way that they had to fight very hard, champagne and Armagnac and cognac, all those stuff, those regions didn't happen, and the terroir that happened with them didn't happen without a huge fight.
It wasn't just simply rolled out.
No, people died. I'll say that flat out. People died, and it's so crazy to think that that's kind of where we're at now with cannabis. That it's the flavors that matter. It has a huge impact on the quality and the intensity and the experience and the overall enjoyment of the whole thing. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, and once you find a few of those terps that you enjoy or that you're interested in, for the season or for that time, you can really hunt them down and end up finding some interesting things just off of that too. Mm-hmm. I mean, as the industry opens a little more, having access to lab results or seeing those tests in the store makes it easy to find that awesomine strain. That may just be so rare. It's typically very hard to come by. And then you're just like, holy shit, this is awesomine dominant. Like I want to try it just because I want to see what that really tastes like or what it feels like. I think in the Ganjier program, I was already trying to rate aroma and really appearance and things like that. But something that I learned was more rating or trying to analyze the effects. Like really, not just okay, it got me good. I'm set.
Yeah.
It's more like, yeah, right. Like, let me just chill here for a while. It was more like, okay, does this start? Like, is it heavy behind the eyes, or is it? Do I feel it kind of coming up like my back a little bit, or sort of like around like a blanket? I mean, there's all these different ways you could start to try to explain it, and that's definitely something that my eyes opened to there at the program, trying to look at like really the nuances, the differences, and even the differences in the setting, because I think some strains that I smoked there on the Ganjier campus with all these cool dudes and ladies probably got higher ratings than they may have gotten if I was just sitting in my room here,
and whose weed it is and like where
there's like a real story to it or some experience there that's like, it's undeniable, man. I think that cannabis can be looked at sometimes like a utility, like you have to pay the energy bill just to get your electricity. No big deal. But it's more like a movie, man. Like, you could watch different genres of movies, or different parts of a movie can be good or bad. Maybe you liked the story, but the CGI was crap, or like, all those different ways to analyze it, more of an art form than just a utility, right?
It's a commodity. That's a good way of putting it. And the art form of it is so important to keep that. As you said, it's something that we've all analyzed. Oh wow, this knocked me on my ass. Oh wow, I'm cleaning everything in my room. Like, it's for that. Wow, I had no idea this. Like, it gave me energy. It made me creative. It made me sad. It bummed me out. Like, there's intricacies and difference. Insight is so important, and it's different for all of us. And it's different at different times in our life. As I know, as proud writers for Fat Nugs, both of us being across the board Ganjiers, I take that as seriously as possible. Like, my method to start and finish and everything in between has to be set. It has to be minimal variables. I have to be on a good day. I'm not going to test someone's cannabis when I feel like crap. I'm not going to test it when I feel fantastic either. I want to have, that
be
day.
Ready to go, or try to have that same cannabis.
Who has that day every day? Like, it's a tough thing that life comes at you, but cannabis is, the intricacies and the nuances, as you pointed to, are so important to demystify for people who are a little bit intimidated. I mean, I know we're both psychonauts. Like, I can tell right away we're guys who I mean,
Like it's because it's not only the making it approachable to folks who are intimidated, but it's that it's interesting from that psychonaut perspective, right?
Exactly.
More like exploration. Like
so interesting.
yeah,
to me.
like what is
the
this?
natural interest that I know we have as far as like the as you pointed with the laboratories. I was so excited to see the lab results of like now I can have some tangible markers to this thing. Like it is what it is. To me, it's piney. To me, it's lemony. To someone else, they don't taste that. I've had, or someone else across the room was like, boom, that's it. That's fantastic. And that needs to have a page that we can all put that on. So that's the Ganjier program in a nutshell. But the bigger, like the wider angle of the whole thing is the laboratory is providing some stability and some understanding to the people who are trying to find a specific effect, to find that therapeutic, they want that therapy and they want it every time. They don't want to experiment.
Yeah.
They need consistency because their life is inconsistent enough. They need their medicine to be consistent. And that's what I was really dismayed at when I mentioned before, again, these guys messing with stuff that I'm like, you are messing with people's lives, bro.
It's not just a stoner that's buying that. This is like someone with PTSD or anxiety that's trying to level or, stay true.
They're trying to live their life. They're trying to battle, against some demons, and they may be right on the edge. And that's where I got frustrated because some of the people that, I had people I couldn't help. I flat out, I had people, it breaks my heart that ended up ending their lives because there wasn't any help that we could provide fast enough or quick enough. And that's something that you take on yourself, but you're not, like, because that's like there's life out there. But I always think of how that is something we need to eliminate as fast as possible, is the unknown. If there's something out there to help him, which I know there is with the spectrum of medicine and therapeutic value that cannabis is putting, it's so exciting in understanding. I know the depth that we have of understanding the therapeutic potential for the interactions between the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, the alkaloids.
There's so much. It's only just begun, man.
It's only just begun. We're in kindergarten.
The science is just waiting.
Yeah, and we need to catch it up, but we need to do the right thing. We need to get out of the weeds with trying to sell people it as a commodity. As you said, this is something that really deserves to be pushed to a higher level in almost every way. So.
Right. In college, I wrote a paper in a psychobiology class that's all about really how medicines affect the psychology or like the inner workings of folks' minds. Mm-hmm. My paper was about how THC helped to prevent the plaques that cause Alzheimer's. So it's not a cure for Alzheimer's, but it can prevent or slow the pace of the disease. And I tried to treat it very seriously, using what I could. And the professor at the time, this was probably 2007, she was so upset, man, that I wrote about cannabis in this way. And because it wasn't legal, it wasn't okay federally. And it's so crazy to think that now there are programs at colleges just about cannabis. And it's not even been it's not even been over a decade and a half or so, and it's just changed on that level.
Could be an award-winning dissertation right now. As far as
Dude.
That's one that hits very hard home to me as a former athlete as well. I was told,
yes,
like, I was an athlete who I rebelliously was like, I'm smoking weed at parties. Like, I'd be the guy with the huge blunt, pissing everybody off.
Rolling up.
Everybody's drunk. I'm all right. I'm high as shit, but I'm gonna go home and be fine tomorrow. So I didn't.
Dude, that was my MO as well, dude. I didn't drink really in those early days. Just leaned on the herb.
Yeah, and it helped me through a lot. It helped me through, injuries, tore my shoulder out, ended up having reconstructive surgery on that, which left me, I had a scholarship to a university close by. That happened about 2 months before that, ended my career in football. So we got me through not only that, I had the full deal. I'm happy talking about this, but I reconstructive surgery, painkillers, depression, addiction,
Oh, just
Cannabis,
all loaded
just
up.
everything. Well, I
Yeah.
was a 19-year-old, 20-year-old athlete, and I had, being a professional athlete in my mind, and everything just had tanked. So
Yeah.
there's the mental
Dose of
aspect that a
reality.
lot of people don't talk about too, of cannabis being able to just calm the mind at least and get through that. But that, the Alzheimer's is something that I'm terrified of it, man. I've had
Oh, yeah.
serious brain damage and I've had numbers of concussions. I was a bullet on the football field and hockey field or hockey rink. I was a terror. I was a mother's
That's
nightmare.
awesome. Yeah, awesome,
but
but it has its downsides.
it
Of
has
course.
its downsides, and that's the thing. Is it's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that we're gotten to a day and age where not only people understand about cannabis, but it can understand that it has a serious effects as preventing very, very
Yeah,
hard
just helping
diseases
out with
to
some
deal
of
with.
that. Right.
That's
Right.
it.
Dude, definitely had another similarity there on the football field, man. I never got to play hockey because I cannot ice skate at all. I can ice skate as good as you would think a guy from Kansas can ice skate.
Yeah, up here,
It's like
up here in
horrible.
Canada, it's like a prerequisite. You got to learn to
Right.
skate before you walk. So,
Otherwise, you lose your citizenship. No poutine for you.
but yeah, football was later in life, and that was a tough one on me. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, dude, it was definitely fun, man. Playing, I only played up to high school level, but on the offensive and defensive line. And yeah, dude, some of those pulls, if you pull as a tackle or guard or something and just ear hole somebody, there, dude, that's gonna affect them in a few years.
That's it,
It's
man.
like,
I
it's
ruined.
rough.
I thought about it too. I ruined hockey. I was a little bit of a nut job. I played very high level hockey when I was younger, and I was known in the league.
Nice, dude.
I took
You're
out a
like,
couple
shit,
people.
Jerome's
and
on that team.
Exactly. I feel terrible later because the amount of damage and stuff I did to them, but again I get worried. I did damage to myself and get little glitches and stuff. But
All in good
cannabis,
fun, right?
It's why I use cannabis in the many varieties and ways that it does, because that kind of stuff gives you glitches with sleep, satiety, mood, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. And again, anybody dealing with that knows that you kind of get to a point where you try anything. And that wasn't how I got introduced to cannabis, but
Right. It's good to be able to provide that insight now and all of your
Exactly.
experience, man, and kind of in what you're doing with Meristem. Well, thank you for coming on the show today, Matt. And where can people find more about you and your projects here online?
It's a pleasure, Rob. Thank you for having me. People can find, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Just search Matthew Jerome. Be able to find me. Instagram handle is Ganjier Matt. Always trying to shout out some of the expos and wonderful publications and organizations that I've been a part of. We got one coming up in March 24th to 26th, I think. It's called the Can Expo. Got lots of incredible people that I'm with. Education, and the Canadian Cannabis Travel Alliance is going to be there. So hope to see everybody there. That's going to be a great time.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we'll have to get on one of these panels sometime if we can find an expo on the border that's kind of within reach. Talk quality and cannabis.
100%. You mentioned one in New York that I think if we can find that, that's going to be fantastic, man.
Right.
I'd love to chop it up with you on a panel.
We'll make it work and keep the Fat Nugs articles rolling here, man. But yeah,
100%, man.
take it easy here, dude.
Represent.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Rob. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Apartment 113 podcast. For more information about the show and our range of services, visit apt113.com. We offer certified Ganjier services, cannabis operations consulting, and agile product management for software development. With over a decade of experience in the cannabis industry, Apartment 113 is here to help.